Thinking about buying a franchise? Then the How to Buy a Franchise show is just for you. Here's your host, Dr. John Hayes.
Hi, this is John Hayes. I'm at the International Franchise Expo. And today I'm going to be talking about franchise resales. But first, thanks for tuning in on Stitcher Radio and iTunes, and thanks for watching on video if you're at howtobuyafranchise.com, where everything is all about educating you about franchising to determine, is franchising a good fit for you, and vice versa. Are you a good fit for a franchise? If so, then this is the place for you to get educational information. I do not sell franchises, but I help you determine if franchising makes sense for you, and if it does, what kind of franchise you should buy. Today, I'm going to talk about the resale of a franchise, which is a topic that doesn't get discussed very often. And why is that? Well, there seems to be a negative that if you're reselling a franchise, what's wrong with it? Well, there's nothing wrong with it. I want to retire. I've been operating the business for 20 years. I've made a lot of money out of the business, and I'm ready to sell it. And I want to sell it for a profit. I didn't invest in it to keep it forever and to do nothing with it. I invested in it for the purpose of reselling it. And this is my opportunity. And today, I'm talking to Mr. Franchise Resales himself, who's going to tell us more about how do you find franchises that are available for resale, and how does this work, and what are the pros and cons of buying an existing franchise over starting one on your own. Johnny, welcome. Here we are at the International Franchise Expo, where there's a big crowd of people.
Yeah.
And you've got a board over here that I'm going to go take a look at a little bit later, with a bunch of opportunities that are franchises that are for sale, that have been up and operating. They're already successful.
They're already up and operating, and most of them on here are all up and operating in the New York area, the tri-state area, where there are just lots of franchise owners that have come to the time in their life cycle of franchising that they want to move on.
People sometimes have this negative about, well, if it's for sale, then something went wrong. It must not be a very good deal. But this is not the case. And in fact, I'm sure no one could tell that you come from England with your accent, but...
Well, first of all, John, I come from Scotland.
Oh, okay, from Scotland.
So please, let's get
shame
that right.
on me.
But you know, there is a huge cultural difference over here. It seems to be the first question people think is why. And for sure, there are a lot of people that have bought franchises that maybe they didn't come and read all your books and literature. They just went ahead and did it, and they're in the wrong business, and they want to sell on, and there's some great what we call turnarounds in that you can buy them at way below the price of a new one, and you can often buy one way below the price with 100k of turnover, which is a great way to start a business.
So 100k in sales in our terminology. Turnover could be a negative. In fact,
I've got caught in that a few times.
So in other parts of the world, like in the United Kingdom, a franchise resale gets people excited.
Absolutely. And it's now, we reckon that some research the British Franchise Association have done, about a third of franchises bought in the UK now are resales.
A third of them
are resales.
Being bought on every year are resale.
Of new franchises coming in have bought a resale.
Franchising has come of age by now in the United Kingdom. Even though it's older than we are, we got an earlier start in franchising, and franchising is much more popular in the United States than it is in any place else in the world. But in the United Kingdom, it's probably second most popular there. So it's come of age, and now people who bought franchises maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago, are ready, or maybe only 3 years ago, they've made their money out of it, or they decided, this isn't the right business for me, but it would be a great business for somebody else. They want to sell the business.
Absolutely. And it is definitely coming that way in the US, because speaking to the visitors coming to the shows, when they realize that they've never been aware that they can buy an existing franchise. They'll always think they've got to buy a new one.
Exactly, because at expos like this, where we're here at the International Franchise Expo, everybody is selling a startup franchise, except your booth. You've got all the franchise resales. How many do you have that people can go look at today?
Well, there's probably 150 now, and it's growing all the time. And we have been working with a lot of franchise brands that are managing the resales on behalf of their franchisees, and that works incredibly well.
Yes.
Where they know in their system where there's a number of franchisees that want to exit, and when somebody comes along to talk anew, they might see a better fit for somebody buying an existing one, and they try to manage the process in a balanced way to get the best deal for their existing franchisee and the new franchisors.
Okay, and what's the number one reason why franchisees want to exit a business in the United States? These 150 businesses you're representing, are they all not good businesses? Are they
There
all?
are some. They've made mistakes. As I say, they never read your book. They just went straight in and bought it. But there are others they just, for various reasons. There's a lady for health issues that wants to sell on her business. There's another one who's moving from California to Colorado, and they have to sell their business and things. There's a lot of reasons.
Is there a number one reason? Is it retirement, for example, or is it I want to buy another business, so I want to take the equity out of this business? And
it's a combination of all three, and there are definitely a lot that sometimes want to trade up. They've bought a small franchise, they've done it really well, they want to cash in on that, and then maybe buy a bigger investment type of franchise, and they see that away. And so they, the problem is that, or the opportunity in the resales is, it's part of the life cycle of franchising, and I don't believe, John, anybody who buys a franchise in day one buys it for life.
Yes.
And that is not what happens. But once they get into it, they realize it's not as simple to get out of it.
Yes, and that's one of the criticisms about franchising.
Yeah.
People will say, no, you don't want to buy a franchise. You'll own it for life. You'll never be able to get rid of it. But in fact, you can sell a franchise, and you're proof of that because you represent 150 opportunities through franchise resales that are available today. And then, is it less expensive for me to buy a startup from one of the franchisors here that have a booth at the expo? Is it less expensive, less money if I buy a startup as opposed to coming to buy an existing franchise from you?
It depends, John, as you know, I would say. If it's a very highly profitable franchise with proven figures over the last 5-10 years, and you can see it from their books and records, it might well be more expensive.
Yes.
You're buying into a substantial turnover in the business, sales in the business.
Big sales, annual sales.
And they can justify the price, but they have to justify it. There's others who have maybe bought it at a price at the beginning, and they've not run it well, or they've lost interest in it, and it's run down a bit, and there's a chance to buy it a lot less than buying new.
So it's an opportunity for someone to buy that.
A big opportunity, and there's quite a lot in that area.
So one of the big benefits of buying an existing franchise is that it's already up and operating. So you don't have to start from day one when you don't have any customers.
Cash flow from day one.
Cash flow from day one in this case, because you're buying a going concern. So of course you're probably going to pay more for that. If the business has $1 million in sales annually, of course you're going to pay more for that than a business that has zero sales annually because it's just getting started. So,
John, I've seen one we were with a food franchise where the owner had sort of lost a little bit of interest, run it for 10 years. A new operator came in, and in the first year, they put the turnover up from $500,000 to $750,000, just a new operator with the enthusiasm.
And so often that happens because not everybody is cut out for franchising. Some franchisees are better than other franchisees. So if you have a business that was purchased by someone who hasn't done a good job, who really shouldn't have been a franchisee, and you are a good operator and you will follow the system, this is an opportunity for you to buy maybe a tarnished franchise that you can set on a right track.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So looking at pros and cons of doing this again, one of the benefits being you've already got sales from day one, so you have cash flow from day one. That's a big benefit. Another benefit is you don't have to go in and learn. You don't have to go to a training for 2 weeks of well, you would go to training, but you don't have to go from training back to your market open the doors and hope that somebody comes in and buys something from you. You don't have to do all that startup phase. You don't have to go look for a location.
You might well.
You don't have to hire employees.
They might
the
all be in
employees may
place.
already be there.
Yeah.
The stock, the merchandise may already be there. These are great benefits of buying an existing franchise, as opposed to going in and starting the headache of starting it from day one.
But being able to look back at the trading records of the business for the last 3-5 years,
Yes.
it tells you everything.
Yes.
There's nothing hidden. They're factually there. They've been audited, and you can look at it in your due diligence, and the chances of success are the problem. One of the problems, of course, when buying it is that you're actually buying a business. If you're buying a property, you've got a lease to buy or lease to transfer.
Yeah.
And also you've got a franchise agreement you'll have to sign as well. So you have to get them all in sequence.
Yes.
Or you could go down the route and build up a lot of legal fees and then decide one of them doesn't work.
Yes.
So there's a lot of components you have to understand when you're buying it.
And the franchisees who are selling, are they willing to show 3 to 5 years of records of what the business how the business has performed? Is this a problem, or?
Well, I've never seen it a problem if they're serious about selling.
Yes.
And if it is a problem, I wouldn't buy it.
Yes.
They
must have something to hide if they don't want to show you what they were doing.
They've got to justify
So if they want to sell it, they've got to justify the price.
They're putting the price on their business.
Yes.
So they have to justify it.
Okay.
And it can be contentious.
Yeah.
You value it yourself if
Yes.
you're thinking of buying one.
Yeah.
And you negotiate.
Yeah. And speaking of the price, so let's say, I could start up a business for, let's say, $150,000. But this business that's already been operating for 5 years, and they've got sales or turnover of several $100,000 or maybe more than $1 million a year, they want to sell it for a much higher price. Rather than investing $150,000 and starting from ground zero, I would have to invest $1.5 million, let's say, and start with existing sales. The employee base is already there. The store is already there. It's been there for years. People know where it exists. But where am I going to come up with the $1 million? This might be, are the banks as eager to finance that kind of a deal as they are a startup franchise?
I find them more eager, providing the purchase price is in line with the...
It makes sense.
It makes sense.
Yes.
If it makes sense, the banks love it.
Yes.
They're very, very keen. And we find there's also a lot of existing franchisees for different circumstances who are running good, profitable businesses need to move quickly for health reasons and things. And there's some great, I need to move quickly.
Yeah.
Can you find me a buyer?
Banks and leasing companies, because they love franchising to begin with, would probably be more encouraged about an existing business that they can see 3 to 5 years of operating data that shows them, well, this business, as long as it's got a good operator, and the franchisor's job is to select a good operator, this business is a good investment. So yes, we will provide.
John, I will probably today in our booth, I'll have 20 or 30 franchise, finance companies, banks, leasing companies trying to can we talk to some of the people looking to buy a franchise, a resale, because they know they want to talk to them.
And I want to talk to some of those people as well who are doing the financing.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a session on franchise resales. Not a bad word, not a negative word. Somebody buys a franchise, and the real reason to buy a franchise is to sell the franchise someday. So you buy a franchise, you operate it for 3 years or 30 years, and you decide it's time for me to retire, or it's time for me to move across country and I want to sell the business, or it's time for me to go do something else. I want to buy another kind of a business. Any number of reasons why successful franchisees want to sell a business. And so we've had a good education today on franchise resales and why that might make sense for you. I want to thank you again. If you're on iTunes or you're on Stitcher Radio, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for coming to howtobuyafranchise.com, where I don't sell franchises. I educate you about whether or not you're a good fit for franchising. This is John Hayes. I look forward to talking to you in our next session.
Thank you for listening to How to Buy a Franchise Show. If you want immediate assistance, visit howtobuyafranchise.com to contact Dr. John Hayes for a free consultation.